Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to Woodlands County Economic Development Committee meeting for Thursday, March 13th, 2025. And we're opening the meeting at 1:08. So I would like to accept a motion to adopt the agenda, or if there's any changes to the agenda.
Just a question for administration before we adopt this. I had sent an email asking for an item to be added, and I don't see it on the agenda.
It's in the closed package.
It's in the closed package, okay. All right, then I'd move that we accept the agenda.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Perfect.
In favor.
Awesome, thanks, Doug. And is there any discussion, changes, or comments in regards to the minutes? Okay, go ahead,
I'll
Councilor.
motion that Economic Development Committee accept the meetings of the January 16th, 2025 meeting as presented.
Perfect. Any further discussion? Call a question. All in favor?
In favor.
Thanks, Doug. Awesome. So moving right along, then I will turn over to Bert to introduce our delegation.
All right, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and my pleasure to have with us someone who I think everybody probably knows, Councillor Peter Koken, who also wears a second hat as the chair of the Growth RETA Board and who's appointed as the council rep to the Growth RETA Board. And now we have Mr. Ferris back with us, so maybe just quickly before I introduce the delegation, my pleasure to introduce to our committee members. Council, of course, already knows him. We have with us our new CAO, Matthew Ferris. So Matthew, thank you for joining us and being here with us today. And Patricia is our board chair, Patricia McNeil. Shelley Tell is here. Shelley is also one of our other members at large. David Turcott, newly appointed member at large as of January. Patricia is in her third term? Second term. Second term as an appointee as member at large. Shelley also is in her second term. And then Kirsten Belke, who is also on our committee, will be joining us a little bit later on. So, and council, I believe you know.
I just haven't met Mr. Turcott. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you
Awesome,
too.
and thank you for joining us.
Okay, so with that, Peter, I'm sorry, we'll come back to you. And we do have in the RFD several attachments which detail some of the particular items that the Growth Partnership has been up to, including the operations plan, the government reporting that had to be done, and some information about a project that I know you want to tell us more about, which is the Social Impact Lab. So Peter, with that, I will hand it over to you.
Okay, through the chair, and thank you very much for the invitation. I'm going to start this, first of all, that
I'm sorry to interrupt, but if I may, Janet has just arrived as well. So ladies and gentlemen, Janet Jabush, Executive Director for the Growth RETA, is here with us as well. Sorry, Peter.
Thanks, Jen. Yes, it's snowy drive this morning, or this afternoon.
It's horrendous out there.
okay, yeah, thank you, because with conversations with Janet this morning, is that she probably will be able to share the more of the administrative capacity issues and burdens, which I wouldn't be able to do because that's not what my job is in this in this role. First of all, I'd like to say that if any of you are feeling that there's being some finger pointing done here, or that I'm out of line with this is going to be a fairly blunt presentation, because I've been working in this space now for the last 3 years under the tutelage of both our economic development officer in Woodlands, but also with the regional economic development specialists, community futures, not just here in our region, but as well over in the on the eastern side of the province, learning more about the economic development picture and the importance of it. And I'd also like to preface this with the fact that the reason that I am here is because under the strategic plan that Woodlands County has, regional economic development was a priority. It's one of the things that, even though it may be a priority for our council, the tools that you need to use for that are outside of it, because we haven't really, we shouldn't and haven't really the ability as a municipality to direct our economic development officer to develop, to do any of that development regionally, even though all of the indicators are through the journey that I've been on, that that's the pathway we have to go, and that's the reason that growth exists. Now, the second thing is that growth is no longer the organization that it was 3 years ago. It's evolved because it had to change. It had to change because there were a lot of not only geopolitical changes, but a lot of economic changes. And those changes are evidenced by a lot of the information that we get as councils. And I was quite interested last night that not more questions were asked on the presentation that was given by the community services people from Whitecourt, because those are indicators of the situations that exist, and they're not unique to Whitecourt, they're not unique to Woodlands, they're unique to rural Alberta. So all of the regions have many of the same issues, and if we deny that we need to do collaborative and collective economic development work regionally, then we're just sticking our head in the sand. And the reality of it is that when I look at what Woodlands contributes as far as financial to that to this organization, and I think Mr. Jabush will agree with me that that contribution won't even cover the costs of doing the reporting for some of the grants that we get from the government. So it shows you just how difficult a situation I walked into, and how naive I was when I walked into it. But that doesn't really matter. What mattered more was that I needed to figure out how to make it work. And so I applied, I put a lot of energy into it, and I did keep the time that I spent and the mileage that I put on my vehicle and the reading that I did. And quite frankly, it equals the time that I spend doing my council work. So it shows you just how important it is. The second thing is that when we look at our own situation as a municipality, and I can't speak for the other participating partners, but I'm sure it's the same, is we're consistently looking at increasing taxes to our ratepayers because of the service level that we say that we're going to do. And we have one revenue stream, and that seems to be the tax revenue stream. And yet we're doing nothing really concrete about it, except hoping that we're going to land a big investment in our community that is either connected to is primarily connected to the energy sector, and that will solve all our problems. Well, the reality of that is that under the current model that is proposed by the provincial government, and this is what our regional economic development specialists do understand, is that that model hasn't been working for probably the last 15 years, 20 years, and consistently municipalities are under more and more pressure to to take on responsibilities that used to be there by the province. And so the question that we have to ask ourselves is what are we going to do about it? Are we going to continue going to the government and asking for something that we're not getting? Because rural Alberta is that way. So the only solution to this is to start to collaborate with our partners that choose to collaborate, that understand this. And that's where the unfortunate part is that even within our own organization, within our own council, I really get the sense that they don't understand that the only way that we can get ourselves out of this is to diversify what we can get as investment in our communities. And we can't do that unless we understand what our region is all about and what it needs. And so that's the space that I've been working in. Currently, we're as the old growth organization, we are firmly working on making sure that we get a really good website developed for the foundation, so we can actually communicate with our industry partners, potential investment and all of that stuff. We have our energy and emissions summit that's being organized, and there's going to be a big debate around that at our meeting tomorrow as well, because there's some things there that the growth board has to discuss as far to is what is the value of it, and what do we want that outcome to be, and that's not up to me to decide, that's up to the board to decide. The other one that I know that has been out there for quite a while is the tourism program, which is wild, and that is being completely revamped because it couldn't work the way that it was done before, and it actually probably hasn't been working effectively for the purpose that it was designed for a number of years already. So that's being completely revamped, and yesterday I spent 6 hours with a tourism marketing specialist and website development, educating me so that I understand better what needs to be done, and can actually say, well, this is what it's going to cost to build that car. So that was a really interesting exercise, because it's going to be another item that's going to be on our agenda tomorrow for the board discussion to take direction. Now, the membership expansion piece is the one that's probably been the most complicated, and I think your chair, Patricia, was involved in the original engagement session that was there. And out of that engagement session, we developed the vision and the mission and the vision and the goals and objectives of this organization, which is now completely changed from what it originally was, but still able to operate under the nonprofit, under the organizational way that growth operates. The interesting part about this exercise is that we included the component which had to be included, which is the elephant in the room all the time with economic growth, and that is what is the social impact. It's really quite interesting that all of the research that's out there that shows is that if you don't address the social impact when you do development, you will have exactly happen what's happened in the province here, is that the expectations of the people that come and work here are created in that 20-year window that investment exists here, and then when that investment leaves, they're left there with an expectation of a permanent job, and guess what? It's not there anymore. So it really affects the social fabric of a community, and because rural communities are kind of designed at the very bottom end of the production side, they're the most negatively affected by that that situation. So we have a group of people, consultants, that are putting the social impact lab together, and this will be the place where we hopefully will show, if we can get enough interest from people, show them the importance of connecting those two dots, the regional responsibility that we have under the MGA to take care of our situation here, and secondly, the social responsibility we have as municipal leaders to make sure that we try to take care of those people that live in our communities. So this is the work that's there, and what's really interesting about it is that economic development has no real metrics that can be applied where you can measure success. But what I've seen is the metrics that are out there are showing that we aren't succeeding. We're not doing the job that we need to be doing. So I've been consistently involved and tried to find people who don't want to just say, well, this isn't working for me without knowledge, but are saying, you know what, this isn't working. So how are we going to find solutions to this? And slowly over those 3 years, I've started to find those people, and we've started to put those people together. And I can honestly say that the board that I work with are all generally working in that direction. You can ask Janet, we don't always get along. We don't always agree on certain things, but I think all of us agree that this is a very, very important part of our rural municipal puzzle. So I'm going to just quickly tell you what the journey's been. It started for me with an initiative that our EDO put together, the first one in the province of, in fact, the first one in Canada, and that was a site link. For whatever reason, I was asked to be a part of the group of people as a new councillor to take some of these guys out, show them the area, and I had an opportunity to take 3 of the site selectors fishing. So I developed a really good, solid relationship with those folks and some of the economic developers in the province, and we still consistently communicate. And what I learned from that was that these investors, these people that are looking to bring business into our communities, are looking for long-term, diverse investment. And it's not something we can offer just within our own municipality. We have a great town that's right in our municipality called Whitecourt that needs to be involved in this regional strategy. We have a numerous amount of municipalities surrounding us that don't even have an economic development strategy. So the burden, again, falls on very few people to try to figure this out. And that's the struggle, is to get people to the table to actually do those things. So the site link was the first step. The next big step was to understand our region. So Growth pulled together this engagement session with a group of consultants called ClearThink. And we had it at the Eagle River Casino. And this is the one that Patricia, you were involved in and actually had some really incredible input through your analysis with your play into AI that these consultants really appreciated and helped them put together the goals and objectives that we needed to have to move forward. And from that, the vision was developed, but there's still that piece missing of understanding that social impact. Investment works very, very simply. You invest money. If you don't make money, you don't exist anymore. If you do, you do. The social portion of it is so an integral part of the success of that capital investment, because if you don't have humans and people, it doesn't work. And if you don't take care of those humans and people, it doesn't work either. So that was the second step. The next one was for me was understanding the provincial landscape and how they view rural Alberta. Well, I think we as council are pretty aware that we're kind of left on our own there. There's not a lot of interest to take care of any of those deficiencies that we have. And a good example is our airport, where the province wants to have that as an asset that they use, but they really don't want to commit any dollars to making sure that it's maintained. And they want to leave that in the hands of our municipality. So we can't count on anything from the provincial government. So how are we going to do this? I think we need to get involved in a regional collaboration. We have to understand that within that, we have to have collective decisions. We got to get the egos out of the room. We have to understand that the social portion of this is the one that we're starting to see the signals that the investment model and the economic model that we're working in currently isn't addressing. And if we continue to go down the path of redoing what got us here, that to me is insanity. So this is why this is important. And I think that I'll just give Janet a quick minute to address the administrative capacity issues, because we don't add more. So we're actually going through a process now of making sure that if we don't or aren't able to do the funding that will make this organization work, then at least the equity and the stuff that we've developed is going to be there for tools for the municipalities that are still participating. So I'm
Excuse me, Peter.
I'm pretty much done there.
Sorry, I was just going to say before Janet jumps in, I just wanted to ask you as well is if you could maybe think, and we'll come back to you, about what's the ask of the committee. And if you had, 2 or 3 ways that this committee could support you, then what would that look like? So I'm not looking for an answer now. I'd like to come back to that.
Yeah.
But just to kind of give you a moment to think about that while Janet continues. And also, I'd really like to thank you for the amount of effort and, time and so on you've put in. I know this is a passion project, and I've seen the work that you've put into it. And it's definitely a complex situation and one that we really need to look at collectively to address. So, okay, thanks, Janet, go ahead.
Thank you. For those of you that don't know me, Janet J. Bush, Mayor of the town of Mayerthorpe, and I'm also sitting in the, mostly unenviable position of being the executive director for the RETA. We lost our tenured executive director it was in 2020, I think, when Troy left. And I came quickly to realize that we overestimated what the rest of us were capable of and grossly underestimated what he was doing for us. Peter's right, the administrative burden attached to this is enormous. There's the day-to-day stuff like the meetings and the board packages and the minutes. And I mean, I don't put together 200-page board packages, but I can tell you it still takes me every bit of 8 or 9 hours to put a board package together. There's briefing notes, there's research, there's all the things, right? So the administrative burden, and that never goes away, whether things are going well or they're going poorly. In fact, if they're going poorly, it's often more onerous. Peter spoke briefly about the current funding situation with the province, which is, you know, for some of the bigger REITs down south that have got 35 and 40 members, they're probably gonna weather the storm pretty well. Up until there's no more operational funding at the end of March in 2027. For smaller REITs like this one, where our membership revenue is quite small already, these next 2 years are gonna be brutal for us. Our membership revenue for 25-26 is gonna be a little over $11,000. When the jobs, economy, and trade equation kicks in, they will match that at a rate of 1.5 to 1, which is gonna give us about a little over $17,000. Of that $17,000, jobs, economy, and trade says you can only spend 50% of that on operations. The other half of that you gotta spend on projects. Well, jobs, economy, and trade has also up the ante as far as reporting requirements are concerned. We took a little vacation from KPIs, key performance indicators, for a number of years. They are back this year with a vengeance, and I would say there's probably at least a third more boxes that you have to go through in the reporting now than there was a year ago. The other thing that jobs, economy, and trade is requiring of us is a full-blown independent audit. Which when, you know, if you're talking about $1 million REIT like a couple of them down south are, okay, maybe. When you're talking about a REIT whose budget isn't even $200,000 a year, what on earth do you think you're gonna get out of a full-blown audit? Besides another big fat bill for the REIT. So if you take that half of that $17,000 to put it to operations, that's probably gonna cover the audit and the time it's gonna take me to prepare the reporting, which leaves no money out of that amount for any other part of the operation. So we have some struggles. Bert added in your packages the operations plan from 2024-25. The back page of that plan shows a $175,000 projected budget. I went and crunched some more numbers the other day. That's now $160,000. It's just not there. And I don't know what the budget for next year is gonna look like. It's gonna be skinny, like way skinny. I don't know where it's gonna come from. But the social impact lab work that we're doing is really exciting because we're hoping that, as Peter hit on a number of times, that missing link is the social impact that goes with economic growth in a region. And I think, you know, economic developers are probably aware of that, you know, all along the path, but I don't think the average human being or the average counselor stops and thinks, well, we're talking about economic development. Yeah, but there's always a social piece. If you bring 30 people to town, that's 30 more people shopping, 30 more people in schools, 30 more people at hospitals, doctors, all the things. That's all the social stuff. So,
Absolutely. Just a Councillor.
sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No problem, and I appreciate you guys sharing the information on the REIT and the presentation here, but I just want to remind everybody in our meeting bylaws that delegations are set to 15 minutes and we're
supposed
going
to be
on
brief.
30 minutes.
Okay, well,
So if we could
I'll
present
ramp
an
it up
ask or
here.
something here, I think a lot of us would appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I'll ramp it up here. Peter just wanted me to hit on the administrative stuff. So the other thing that the REIT does is the AAIP program. I write on average between 6 and 8 or 9 letters every 3 or 4 weeks for people that need endorsement letters. The outreach is always ongoing. I've had a pretty good week where that's concerned. I've made contact with somebody from Alexis. I'm talking to somebody from WIDA here in Whitecourt. ANSA, which is the Alberta North Central Alliance, Big Lakes, High Prairie, Slave Lake, Drift Pile, Saw Ridge, the MD of Opportunity. It's all those people up there in that general vicinity. So chatting with them, chatting with both Northern Gateway Public Schools and the Pembina Hills School Division. Again, that's ongoing communication. We have, Peter mentioned our NRED project, the energy and emissions piece that we're doing. That's moving forward more slowly than I'd like. But again, it's one foot in front of the other, and there just is not any other way to do it. Peter's right. We've got an uphill battle, an uphill climb over the next while. There's some people at our board table right now that are doing some pretty heavy lifting. Peter, myself, and Dean LaBerge are the three that I can identify right off the top of my head. But yeah, the The administration will literally kill us unless we figure out a different way to do things.
That makes sense. Councillor Dean, you had a question?
Yeah, through the chair, I guess I'll ask this of you, Janet.
Sure.
I went through that package, and oh, by the way, it was 87 pages that we got this morning, so I was a little confused because in the opening few pages it talked about, I think it's your business plan for 24 or 25.
The operations plan, yeah.
And so it had a budget at 175,000. It broke down the expenses by the various initiatives. And then for revenue, the revenue that you have coming in equaled that 175K. It said external revenue was 129,669 and the internal was 45,331. Can you explain what the external funding is and what the internal funding is?
Sure. I'll start with the internal funding, if you don't mind, Councillor Dean. That's money that we had in the bank.
Okay.
Over COVID, our membership revenue just didn't get spent because there just wasn't anything going on. So we had a little bit of a nest egg, for lack of better terminology.
That's what that 101,000 was in the financial statements.
That's exactly part of it. And then the external revenue, $125,000 of that was made up from the Jobs, Economy and Trade grant from, no, that's not right. Give me a second. I get the years are all jumbled in my brain here. The external revenue, part of that was the leftovers from the $125,000 from 23-24, except that wound up biting us because Jobs, Economy and Trade asked for some of that back. So we had to cut them a check for $28,500 this year. That hurt a lot. But a good portion of that revenue item, that line item there, is that $125,000. And then we got a $33,000 NRED grant that is going to be used for that energy and emissions education piece. There's $4,000 of that is an Travel Alberta grant for, not Travel Alberta, Alberta Culture grant for Culture Days. Which we're hoping to do an Indigenous kind of a thing this fall. That's what the plan for that is. So we're moving it a little bit further down the line and going to apply for more funding through Alberta Culture Days. We should be able to get another amount and actually host a pretty decent event.
Okay, and then just the last question. Under expenses, you've got admin budgeted at 40K. Is that you?
Not just me, sadly. We had a lady who was with us early on in the fiscal year, and between her amounts and the amounts that are mine now, we've blown right through that $40,000. It'll wind up being closer to 60 by the end of the fiscal year. So as you can well imagine, I call that upside down. And I don't know how we're gonna get right side up. It's gonna be a struggle.
Go ahead, Councillor Wall.
Just looking at your 2024 statements, and your expenses, the majority's falling into like subcontractors. Was that just like subcontracting programming out for this, or what does that include? Because that's like almost the majority of your guys' budget.
I'm sorry, are you talking about the 2024-25 operations plan?
No, if you're looking at the statement.
Oh,
of
you're
revenues
looking
and
at
expenses.
financial statements, okay.
I just so I understand what like the majority of your guys' money is getting spent.
That is 110% fine. We did have a pretty decent chunk of change spent on subcontractors. And that included the subcontractors that we had for our stakeholder engagement piece that was held at the beginning of 2024. We did a lot of work, Patricia was there, we did a lot of work with them. That was really a really impactful couple of days. And there were a number of interactions with those contractors in preparation for that engagement session. But I don't think you'd find anybody at our board table that thought that was money ill spent. But yeah, it would have been that, and then the other piece of the subcontractors, would have been a lady that we had doing this job for a very small space of time. But she also was the contractor working on the Wild Alberta Tourism magazine. So she was, she had kind of two pieces that she was tending to, both the administrative piece and the Wild Alberta Tourism magazine. And in these financial statements, year ended March 31st, 2024, I believe there's likely still some stuff in there from Wild Alberta and the contractor that we had doing videos and digital imaging for us then. So yeah, it was a big year for contractors for sure.
Just while we're on the financials, I did also have a couple of questions. In the financial statements, it talks about a cost of just about $35,000 for website development and over $16,000 for computer equipment. So what I'm wondering is, what equipment would that be, and do you still own it within Growth? And the website development, was this for the website prior, and now the website development that's happening now is a new expense?
The website development that is part of the subject of the financial statements is the Wild Alberta website.
Okay.
Because we got a federal tourism relief fund grant. We were approved. I don't remember how much money we got out of that. About $140,000, I want to say. And the bulk of that money went to the digital imaging and the videos and those sorts of things, and how shall we call it? Management services by the person that was taking the pictures and doing the things. And that was, Peter alluded to this, that the way Wild was running back then was not conducive to sound fiscal policy. We entrusted that very precious asset to someone and are not happy with the way that actually turned out for us financially.
And the computer equipment?
The computer equipment has buffaloed me too, because we only bought in the last 3 or 4 years 2 computers to the tune of about $2,500. Now the rest, the other part of that could have to do with some of the digital assets that were accumulated. But yeah, when I saw that, it kind of caught me off guard too. And I asked the accountant about it, and to be fair, if I'm being perfectly fair about this bunch of financial statements was prepared by Hendricks and Black and Mayerthorpe. It's the first time they've ever done our financials. We moved it from an accountant in Westlock. So I was willing to cut them a little bit of slack. It'll get tighter this year because we're doing our bookkeeping all kind of in one place now, so.
Definitely, when I know myself, I've developed in the private sector, had lots of websites and computer expenses and so on. And when I put my private sector eyes on these numbers and the numbers for the consultant, although I do agree it was a good engagement session, I was quite astounded at how high they were. I thought public compared to private, definitely there was some disparity in what I would have expected to pay for those services.
It's definitely a different animal. I will say though that what you see here for invoices from those contractors in that engagement session last February doesn't cover what they've done for us. I can't tell you the number of times Perry Phillips has come out here gratis. All he wants is for me to buy him a cheeseburger and pay for a tank of gas. He doesn't charge me for his time. The number of times he's done, probably half a dozen at least. There's probably another $20,000 he could charge for that, and we're not paying a dime for it. So we're getting some post-workshop service that we're not paying anything extra for.
Okay. Councillor Dean, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks, through the chair. So again, just looking through the financials, because of course, that's one of our primary jobs as a councillor, is to understand the numbers and be accountable to them. I noticed that your bank balance as of April 30th of a year ago, 2024,
Okay.
was sitting at $187,221 or $220.36. I'm assuming there's been some expenses come out of that.
Oh, gosh,
So-
bucket loads of
So
them.
what would you say, what's your estimate for your cash balance right now?
I don't have to estimate, I can tell you right to the penny,
Okay,
$71,599.
okay.
And that's including the credit cards, the credit card payment that hasn't come out yet, so that's net of everything, $71,599.
Okay, Councillor Wong.
And so I'll just go back to my comment previously. I guess we've had the presentation, now we've got a well-rounded understanding of where the REIT is at and what's going on here. What's the ask, or is there an ask? Like, I guess in the end, what was?
I need to answer that question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'd like to bring it back to Peter for, your points there. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair to Jeremy. You should know what the ask is because we budgeted for that in the current year of budgeting. It's basically the per capita fee that was charged. It's been traditional in the organization for I believe for a number of years. It was there before I was there. So it is in our budget. The interesting part about it is that the dollars that are being given to this organization that I've been sitting on will not even cover the cost of doing the analysis for the government for the funding that we get from them. So it just shows you how regionally or how economic development has been left out of the conversation. And I will preface this by saying that it's not a problem for us as municipalities to give $15,000 to GTA, which I think is a great organization and should be there and should be funded. But it's very difficult. It seems to be very difficult for us as councils to wrap our head around the fact that we just gave $300,000 over 3 years to our economic development officer after there was a very distinct situation where we knew that we were underfunding that part of it to increase our revenue stream. So when you look at it in the big picture, one of the things that we do understand as an organization is that the funding that we get from municipalities currently is a drop in the bucket. It probably doesn't even cover the cost of. In fact, I can tell you right now, it doesn't cover the cost of all of the work that I've done to try to get this to work. And so the reality is that we know what's there. If the council chooses not to fund it, I guess they do that from having a look at the organization from a very, very different angle. They possibly don't understand that it is part of the strategic plan to fund it. Whether it's underfunded or not funded or overfunded is irrelevant. The ask here is that it's in our budget. If you choose not to fund it, I think that myself, I've already made sure that I've had the conversations with our three partners that at least what we do is we protect those assets so those tools could be used down all of the work that's been done can be used down the road by our current administrations. The interesting part about that is that the only administration that would actually be able to use it would be ours, because we have a economic development practitioner who understands exactly how difficult this is and the fact that we do need a regional presence. So the ask is there. It's not in my hands to do this. The only thing that's in my hands is to do the job the best that I can with the skill sets that I bring to the table. And I can guarantee you that I've had probably 25 years in industry development, not just in the agricultural sector, but in other sectors. And I completely understand the complexity of this.
Thank you for that, Peter. Actually, Councillor Dean has a question.
Yeah, it's okay. It was covered.
Okay, and Councillor Wilhelm, and then Bert.
So again, just to follow up, this is currently in our budget for 2025.
Right.
It's already budgeted. You're not asking for more. So in brevity, you're just asking for it to remain in the budget? Is that the ask here? Like, I'm just wondering,
I
'cause
guess-
it's taken 50
I
minutes
guess
to
the
get
ask
to
is,
this
yeah,
point.
I'd like to see it remain in budget, definitely. But I think my ask would rather be is that we need to, as our municipality, understand the importance of trying to figure this out. Because if we don't, we're going to go back into the same pattern that we were a number of years ago, where we are not addressing how we're going to diversify our revenue stream. And this conversation I've had with Councillor Burrows, I think I've had some of that with Councillor Dean, and definitely with Councillor Prestige, because they asked those questions of what are the complexities here. So we're not asking for any more because it doesn't serve a purpose right now to do that. It is just, we're just saying is if it's in the budget and council approves it, we'll carry on trying to build this the best we can. I'm quite optimistic after some of the meetings that I've had that there's some tremendous possibilities. Those possibilities I am going to share with your EDO, because those things come in. Those are things that he doesn't see that we see, and we put it on his table and say, how does this work? He's the practitioner. He's the expert. I'm not.
And thank you for that, Peter. And definitely, we are going to have to wrap this up. So I do know if you guys have one quick comment, definitely.
Yeah, so
to add
just a
it.
point of clarification, so yes, we do have budgeted in the current budget 7610, which is based on that usual annual amount of, I believe it's $1.25 per person, I think, is that the invoice amount?
No, 160 per capita.
$1.60
per
on the per capita.
Do you wanna know
And-
what the amount exactly is?
Uh,
72.92.80.
Okay,
I just did the invoice.
thank you, and that was so 709280, so that was the other part of it. And then, yes, just commenting on something that Councillor Coolkin had stated, which is, of course, that the matching funds that council has committed, provided that we do get the NRED, and we are waiting for the outcome of that application. We hopefully will know by the end of this week. We haven't heard anything yet, one way or the other, so depending on what happens with that, because that is a 3-year iterative kind of grant, the money that we have asked for has been focused around what can we do for site selection and local engagement, but there may be portions of that after a good part of discussion, if it makes sense to all parties, maybe some of that can help us to do some things at the regional level as well as in the Woodlands level. But I mean, there's future discussions to be had there before we do any of that.
I think that's definitely a discussion, a different discussion once we find out whether or not we get the MRED for sure. So we'll definitely, I really want to thank you guys both for your presentation, and it is something that we will be keeping up with growth as our gap. But as far as when there is any changes, definitely Bert's been letting us know through the work plan updates. And if there is anything else pertinent, feel free to bring it forward to the committee as well. And hopefully this year things will come together and the funding model will change, and you'll see some success for the effort that you've put in. So
We're not anticipating a change in the funding model. We're gonna have to figure this out ourselves. Province is not gonna
I'm
help
gonna
us.
make a motion that Economic Development Committee receives the Growth RETA and Growth Alberta Partnership presentation as information.
awesome. Any
Thank you.
further
Thanks, Peter.
Questions?
Okay,
or
thank you very much.
Okay, if there's no further questions, we'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
Thanks, Devin. Thank you, Peter. Okay, moving right along, let's go right into 5.1. Bert, for the strategic update, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. So what we have is under the strategic updates, really just the one item attached at this point for discussion today and for everyone's information. And this is an ad that you have probably seen as it has been out in the public for the last couple of weeks. Closing date is on the 21st. And I'm happy to say that we have a number of applicants that have already responded, but This is the job description or the job ad that we've put forward for the Administrative Assistant Economic Development position. So happy to answer any questions or provide any clarity on that if anyone has anything. It has been developed with HR and with our senior leadership team to make sure that this admin position and the roles and duties align with the other admin positions and roles and duties that we have within the county.
Is there any questions on the floor? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Lee.
Just something that probably Bert can't answer, but you say there's been a few applicants already?
Yes.
How many?
I'm not sure that I can release that publicly, but we'll talk about that in the committee. I can give you a firmer number there if that's fair.
And I did have a couple of comments that I had wanted to add with this as well. And it was just something that, due to the timing and so on, the committee, it wasn't something that we had discussed really about what assets we would want this new candidate to have. So now that the interview process hasn't happened yet, although the application is out, there is something that, I really think we'd like to consider that we've talked about along the board the last couple of years. Can we prioritize candidates with proven experience in digital marketing and managing social media platforms to enhance our community and business engagement? Also, are we assessing candidates for their familiarity with AI tools? And I know.
I knew you were going
Of
there.
course. But it's what has to happen going forward to stay current, so also to support streamlined operations and reporting. And what additional qualifications or criteria could we include in the interview process to ensure that the new hire has the capacity to implement digital strategies that align with the county's economic development goals? So those were kind of the three main points that I would like to see integrated into the interview process, if that's possible, or candidate selection process.
As this is in my time here with Woodlands, this will be the second selection process that I've gone through. I will take that to our director and through to HR, and I will get back to you and let you know as to exactly what our parameters are and everything that we need to follow. I think that there probably is some good opportunity for us to implement some questions and to look at some of those specific kinds of things, but I'll be honest, we haven't had that discussion yet.
And Matthew, our CAO, I think.
Yeah, if I may, sorry.
Please
I
do.
got the terms of reference just to make sure I was okay, and it doesn't say anything about me on it, so and thank you for letting me speak. Just a couple things.
We invite it, please.
So from an economic development committee point of view, recommending those assets or skill sets within the department is absolutely a motion that if you'd like to do it, to put a recommendation to council and have council consider it.
Okay.
Similarly with hiring practices, but ultimately it's an advisory committee and you don't get a say, but I'm not saying we wouldn't consider it. But if that's a direction you'd like, as an advisory board, I'd highly recommend that you just put it as a motion rather than just a discussion on it. Because the point of this committee, as I read the strategic goals, is to provide that advice without the due motions to incorporate it. Other than the recording, since everything's recorded at this municipality, there isn't an official direction for it. So if we could just have an official direction, if that's what the committee would like.
Through the chair, just to follow up on that, Mr. Ferris, so what I heard you say was have this committee make a motion to recommend to council to have these things incorporated. So I'm wondering about a timeline. We're not going to have a council meeting for 2 weeks. When are you interviewing?
The application window closes on March 21st. So I'm not certain how quickly after that we would be interviewing.
So 2 weeks should work then.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we'll have someone in place by the end of April, but it just depends.
Do you want to
on
just
the
use
process.
your put that into a motion?
Sure. And for a point of reference, actually, since I've been chair, I haven't made any motions.
That's
So
okay.
I was like, just making sure that's okay. I'm like,
You've been a good chair.
okay, that I would like then to go forward that the Economic Development Committee makes a motion to advise to council to ask if we can prioritize candidates with the proven experience in digital marketing and managing social media platforms to enhance our community and business engagement. I have all this written down for you, Bert, if you like.
Thank you.
Also,
part of the motion?
actually, can we make the motion that?
That was late. That was really
Thank
late.
you. See, I'm not motion savvy. And that way, can I make the motion to adopt the 3 points that were just raised?
What I would
and then
do
can
is-
give them to
is
you, or
if
what's the
you-
most concise way?
I think read it off.
If you would like to read it off, and then that way we'll make sure that Jennifer and I capture it to the very best of our ability, and then we'll have your written copy to confirm if that would be fair.
Okay, thank you for your patience with with that. Okay, then, number 1, can we prioritize candidates with proven experience in digital marketing and managing social media platforms to enhance our community and business engagement? Number 2, are we assessing candidates for their familiarity with AI tools to support streamlined operations and reporting? And number 3, what additional qualifications or criteria can we actually, I guess this would be a question. What additional qualifications or criteria would the candidate in the interview process have to ensure the new hire has the capacity to implement digital strategies that align with the county's economic development goals? If that makes sense. Is there any questions?
Can you read that third point off again, please?
Okay. What additional qualifications or criteria, well, and this was where I was wishy-washy on it, sorry. What additional qualifications or criteria can the candidate have? No, hang on, let me fix this.
It sounds like you're asking a question there rather than.
It does, that's where, you know what, let's leave it with the 2. The first 2 are more than enough, and that gets across what the.
So
what I
digital
was-
marketing and AI skills,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
basically.
Yes.
So possibly the way to include the third point would be to say, and to ensure that they have other criteria that would assist in implementing a digital strategy.
Thank you, Mr. Wordsmith. Excellent. All right, sorry about that, guys. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? That one's fast.
In favor.
Thank you. Thanks, Devin.
And Madam Chair, just before we flip to the next RFD, if I could just mention something as well. Excuse me, so I just wanted to give a big thank you to Jennifer for the work that she's provided in this role. So thank you very much, Jen.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks,
And-
Jen. Why, yes, you chose fire over this.
And thank you very much for your input on that, Mr. Ferris, as well. It's much appreciated. All right, moving on, let's get into 6.1.
Oh, all right, thank you, Madam Chair. So the recommendation here for the committee is that the committee makes recommendations to administration on opportunities on how we can enhance our business retention and expansion activities with a focus on digital supports. And one of the opportunities that we have to do that is to take a look at how can we enhance 2 of our existing programs, the local vendor program and our Woodlands County Business Directory. The chair and I had a discussion earlier in the last few days, and there's a lot of blanket things that we can do as a municipality. The problem that we sometimes run into is one of potential liabilities. We want to make sure that if we're providing services to any of our residents, we have any potential liability covered. The second part of it is we want to make sure that what we can offer to one, we can offer to everyone. So sometimes when we have these great new ideas and great new things we want to do, if we can do it through an existing program or through expanding a program, it makes it a little bit easier for us to begin to administer and to begin to manage. Not saying that it isn't something that we won't want to do for everyone, because certainly there probably are some things that we do want to do for everyone. But we already have 2 programs that are free for people to sign up for. So that's where as we come forward with any kinds of new tools and new things that we may want to do, I just encourage the committee to think about what would the wheel out look like. How do we want to incorporate something completely new? Do we want to use it to enhance something we already have? we've got a whole myriad of options that are open for discussion.
Thank you, and I'll kind of jump in there and just explain a little further what precipitated this. I was contacted by some county businesses and that had shown videos for what Whitecourt was doing on their economic development Facebook page, and where they had gone and used an iPhone to video, actually the one in particular that I was looking at as an example was Hendrickson Black. And they went to the location, they did a 90-second video with an iPhone, they edited it with Canva, and posted it on their page. So it's something that, again, part of my critique when I was asking about websites earlier, and the digital age is changing so much that we can get supports like this out to our businesses at very, very little expense. And this is part of the reason that I was so adamant about wanting to include those items into the discussion of the new hire, because realistically, I see this as, that's a 4-hour project for somebody with those skills. It's not something where maybe before it was a $7,000 project where we would have to hire somebody with,
Equipment
editing.
and.
Absolutely, so these are some of the ways that our neighbors are partnering with their businesses. So there is an expectation, I feel, from our county businesses that we could provide a similar level of support. And so that's where the conversation was going. And then with the items like what Bert had mentioned, is there some concern around, well, who gets to do it, who doesn't? I really don't see that currently as a real roadblock, because we can put them into our local vendor program. And that, I would think, could easily transition into an offering to an existing program like that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So that software that you talk about, Canva, is that free software?
Yes, there is a free version,
So
and
could we just ask, rather than have somebody from the EDO's department go to the business, could the business just do it themselves and send it?
they could, and I mean, that's definitely an option that I think that we could discuss. One of the things that I would say is my initial thought on that, and in comparison to the other pages that I've seen, is there's a level of continuity of the message that you would want to have. So kind of like what we've done here with the sessions with the Reeve, Shoot the Breeze with the Reeve. So they're really nice sessions, they're concise, and they're very similar. So from a marketing perspective, that would be my feedback, is that we'd want to keep it very similar. So it would be easier to have one person or a couple of people following a protocol.
Sure, and that makes perfect sense. I'm just thinking from a practicality point of view, if we had a template, so if we filmed one, here's an example, this is the template we want you to follow, then we don't have to expend the time and energy to go and gather these.
Agreed, and I think that could definitely also, that could be something that we could look at when we bring this person on.
Yeah.
The other thing is that in the past, I feel we've had some criticism, especially with some of the businesses, because we just haven't had the time and the resources to get out and do business visits. So I also think that it's a really great way for us to get out and get some face time with our local businesses and have that level of engagement.
So this
Yep. No, it's
this
good.
RFD is asking the committee to make recommendations. So I'm hearing a recommendation coming out of this idea that you have. I just had a little trouble with this RFD because it's like, this is brainstorming, right?
Yes.
Essentially, so we want to spend some time in this meeting to think of some other ideas. Is that the
Yes.
intent here?
And that was part of, just to generate some discussion around how do we, even with this, it's great to copy off somebody who's doing it well, but at the same time, can we innovate with that? Can we take what they've done and, or some of our other neighboring municipalities maybe have done, and how can we do it better? Oh, go ahead, Mr. Krabs.
Thanks, Madam Chair. A couple points. I'm new here, and this is not meant to come off in any way inappropriate. But when they look at the terms of reference, the recommendations for the committee is to assign recommendations to council. There is no direction or authority to this committee to assign work to Bert here. I'm sure he'll happily take it on, but from just a conduct point of view, if these are resources, there would need to be motions to request it of council. From a brainstorming point of view, suggesting that we come up with a template makes perfect sense. But from a cost and a time and a resource perspective, I would suggest maybe we look at reaching out to the local high schools and seeing if there's a tech class or a communications class where, as part of an extra assignment or something, they do these templates for local businesses, save us the time and the money, and also get some added life skills for our local youth would probably be a cheap alternative. May not work out, and maybe it's a thing we have to plan for in 2026 so they can incorporate it into a syllabus or whatever their work plans are. I'm not a teacher. But that may be a mechanism to look at that going long term.
Excellent feedback, thank you.
We've got a teacher right here, though, he could tell us.
I don't know about high school, but
Grade threes, maybe not?
yeah, kindergarten, they could do it.
They might be able to, and Shelley had a question.
I guess we already have 2 programs that are already listed, and are they being utilized effectively? Do we need this extra layer? Does it tie in with what we already have, or is it just something more that we're doing?
Great question.
So Madam Chair, if I may, and this is just because I have a 13-year-old, yes, they do have a video class, and yes, they were doing some work for the Wolverines actually on doing filming and videos for some of the players. So I think taking it to the high schools is a wonderful idea, because even in our recent discussions we've had with Pennington Hills around what they're doing and planning for their career fair next week, there is an opportunity even for that school division. So I think there are certainly a number of other resources and other things that we could reach out to. I do like the idea of the template as well, because I think that, if we think back to the role that we should be playing in economic development is to provide tools. Well, a template is a tool, and then that way the business can decide how they want to do it or what they would like to do, right? And that may even be something we can work with the Digital Service Squad and with Community Futures on, because odds are they probably already have some assets and some things like this that maybe we can work with, and maybe we can leverage.
Just through the chair to the committee, I apologize. I gotta go to my next meeting, so I gotta get out of here.
Thank
I
you
just
so much.
wanted to touch on something real quick, because it was a conversation we had before the meeting started, where we were at a discussion about the streaming portion of the meeting and if we could proceed without it. Just for everybody's information, as we move forward in other meetings, the meeting procedure bylaw doesn't require us to stream.
Okay, good to know.
The wording says may. So if we ever do want to proceed without streaming or we're unable to, that's an option that we can have as a committee. Okay? So just so you guys know, for other committees and this one in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
And Councillor Dean had a question?
Yeah, well, I want to come back to what Shelley was asking, specific to where we're going with this idea. So I can see a program like this tying into the directory and the local vendor. I think there's a real appetite amongst those people that signed up for the local vendor to utilize the Woodlands platform, leverage it as much as they can. Right?
To help with their marketing and such.
Yeah, and
Fair.
what I got was that there was a real sense of pride that, hey, we're Woodlands, and we want people to know we're Woodlands-based businesses. So to me, the logical first step, once we've ironed out how we're gonna do it, would be to go to these people and say, here's another tool, here's another opportunity to differentiate yourself. Are you interested?
Try out our template, let's get a video, we'll put it on our website to go with like the local vendor
Yeah. Yeah.
platform, and people can see it on
Sure.
our website or however they market it. That's the idea.
So
I think
coming
that's
back to
a good
the,
idea.
okay, coming back to this RFD, so if we're gonna make recommendations to council, not to administration, based on our committee bylaws, so that would be one recommendation, that we work with the high schools to see if there's a digital platform that can be utilized to incorporate videos with our local vendor program. Is that what we're asking?
I think that's a good ask. As you, like, again, kind of from a brainstorming perspective. So I had a very interesting conversation with two of trustees from Living Waters last night. And they were talking about also the integration of things, AI, digital tools that students are using and so on. And one of the things that I had mentioned to this person was that I was going to discuss at the committee and just kind of bring it up that I want to make sure we're keeping it in our sights to be involved in the youth. And it's something that we don't always discuss at this table every meeting. And especially right now, it's such a critical time going forward. I just see how that could really tie into a project like this and create some value with integrating youth into some of what we do.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah,
For
so
sure.
do I.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's going to be any pushback, but I also kind of want to remind the committee that Rhonda and her crew did this already, right? And
Yes.
I don't know how long it took them to get the ball rolling, whether they went through their counselor or what they did, or it was just her idea and she got an administrative approval. But with all due respect to the process that we're supposed to follow, it's one more step in the process, right? So now if we're waiting until the new semester, which is September, to be incorporated into a curriculum or a course outline, then we might not see anything for a year. And so the committee needs to be aware that that could be the timeline, right? Whereas if we hired somebody and we recommended to council that they liaison with these people that are in this database, the business directory and the local vendor, we might be able to get something off the ground in 2 or 3 months. So there's a difference, right? And so, I think we need to keep that in sight with which recommendation we're making.
Well, I would say as a priority would be the local vendors that are doing that local vendor platform, because it's a pilot project, there's like a maximum of 10. Like, it's a good place to start and try it all out. And then if it's successful and once you get the bugs worked out, then you can get the students more involved
Good
to
idea.
do
Sure.
the whole business list or whatever.
Then you have something to tell them what you're looking for.
There's something that this is kind of what we're looking for, and they can build from that instead of just giving them a blank slate.
And there's
So-
the potential to ask for student volunteers to help with that project. If, say, for example, there was somebody hired to do it, or whether it was the administrator, I don't know how exactly that would work, but maybe it could be something that could be looked at, so.
I'm looking at logistics, and I'm sitting beside a principal, and I see the kids at Hilltop working with the Wolverines. Well, they walk across the street, right? Our businesses require you to get in a car and drive, so there's liability, we probably need an adult accompanying them, and so
It is different
it is
cumbersome.
different, much
than
different.
town.
Yeah. And even if it was in town, like, you can't expect these kids to just jump in their car and drive downtown and participate in this videos. What Rhonda did was part of her job. So she's covered by WHS and
Right.
the liability and everything. And so I think there's some steps that we might encounter that we go, oh. And if we want to do it in a timely fashion, and I would suggest let's just do it ourselves.
Very good point. Go ahead, Bert.
So, Madam Chair, in an absolutely beautiful, perfect world, which hopefully is only a couple of days away, we'll hear about our SEOP funding. And in that funding is the funds and the idea to figure out how we can hire someone to help us to enhance our business visits, all of our sort of business collision events and things we want to put together, all of those different assets. So that absolutely is the easiest route. We just need to know for sure whether that funding is there, and I'm hopeful that by the end of the week, we'll know. And so given that, and everyone's brought up sort of a good point as well. The reason that I had included the terms of reference that we had done for the pilot program is we should also at some point have the committee likely amend that we want to delete the word pilot, and we can just change it to this initiative currently with our budget without knowing about SCOP. The reason that we had limited it to 10 was because we had roughly $100 to $150 worth of materials we were giving to each business that signed up. We've had, I think, 7 that have signed up. So we have a couple of those initial materials left. But what we've heard back from a couple of the participants is that, well, you don't need to give me a bunch of stuff. What I need to do is to be able to use the logo, maybe give me a sign, maybe there's some other things we can do. So I think in the money that we had allocated to this year, if we can be a little bit more flexible, even within those funds, we can say, hey, we want you to sign up for the program. We'd like to give you the logo, but we can also do a 90-second video for you, right? That might be a way that we could do it. And we might be able to adapt some of those existing funds to be able to do that. Certainly if we receive the SCOP, undoubtedly, we'll have the financial capacity there to be able to get whatever assets we need to do, and we'll do it as economically as we can to make sure that we've got it covered. But this is the exciting thing with this, is if we get SCOP, we have a whole range of different options of things we can try to do to provide better enhancements and supports.
One of the things that does bring me in mind, though, once we do find out whether or not we did get the SCOP, if we did get it and go forward, you know, it's something that I remember that there was the ask of council for a budget.
Mhm.
So that would probably be the first order of business, I would think, is that we'll have to sit as a committee and go through to see what the recommendation would be for that budget for the SCOP. Because based on some of the things that I've seen and some of the numbers in different areas, I have a real concern over the cost of some of the consulting when it comes to digital services. You know, and that's something especially that I think that we want to take a really close eye on. And I know that the way when I watched the council meeting, it seemed as if council, although they approved it based on the budget we submit. You know, is the how I took that.
Yeah.
You know, so with the questions being asked, like, if we don't deem this project, you know, acceptable at the time, how much can we give the money back, et cetera, those kind of things. So I just want to make sure going forward that we are really cautious about that and have that budget discussion about what exactly is going to be the project that we're going to focus with this on. Like, I know obviously it's outlaid in the ask for the grant and so on, but when it comes to the nitty gritty and what it's actually getting spent on, you know, we need to be, I think, pretty respectful with the spend on that.
Yeah, the SCOP application was a bit more detailed. The NRED, because it is over the 3 years, it's more of a segmented budget, if that makes sense.
My apologies, I actually
Yeah.
mixed them up, so
But,
that's on.
but that's okay, I mean. you know,
Similar
the-
sentiment.
The reality on both is, you know, for all of those funds approved, we do need to absolutely have a plan and a budget that we're following, and those are often laid out right even directly within the grant agreement. I know currently, the current SCOP that we're working under, when we were granted those monies, it came with the letter from the minister saying, this is the allocation and this is the way it's gotta be done, right? So we always have those guidelines to follow on that part of it.
Sir, oh, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Ferris.
If I may, sorry for being actively involved in this today.
No, we welcome this, it's great.
So the item is business retention and expansion activities. And you're referring to local vendor, I'm gonna call it a program because it's now 2 years into it.
Yes.
I know Bird is doing amazing work, but I can with 100% certainty also guarantee that we currently have businesses in this county that are doing great things that we have no idea about.
Agreed.
This pilot program to me looks like a very rough workaround for a business licensing program.
Interesting.
If it was a mandatory program and it was a nominal fee or a no fee from a business perspective, knowing what we have here allows us to promote it. We can't do anything for those small businesses taking off that are 1 or 2 employees that Bert has no idea about, but they're working here, and we have no way to assist them without a proper program. A volunteer program is great, but at a certain point, you need to know what you have. Then it comes back to the comments of what you're saying about you're concerned about contractor prices. Well, we could very well easily have 30 videographers in the county, and they all work in Edmonton, and we have no idea that they exist because we have no director.
Exactly.
It's all volunteer. I talked to a couple businesses in Fort Assiniboine, they weren't on this. I talked to them about the small business tax incentive, they had no idea it exists, they missed the deadline. So it's, in this day and age, when people say that we're government, we're here to help, of course, there's people's hairs is up on the back of their head, but the problem is in this situation, if we don't know, we can't tell you that there's already helps out there. And then it may not be a big thing, and there may be some pushback, and council may not be in favor of it as a whole, but you can't retain the businesses you don't know about, and you definitely can't help them expand.
Thank you very much for that comment, because you haven't been at the table, but for the first 3 years, I was business directory almost every single time I sat in this town.
Too bad Kristen wasn't here.
So you were speaking my language. And I agree, that's something that we've said all along. How can we help people we don't know are there? And even at the time, I know I have investigated fairly heavily what business licenses look like in some of the other municipalities. And, you know, they literally range from $20 to hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And it's one of those things that currently the only way that we know is if somebody has a business permit, but it doesn't mean that their business could be still going 20 years after they got that permit, or maybe they went under in the first 6 months. And so I do agree, and this is a problem that I'm really glad that you've identified, because maybe now as well we'll have some more support to address this issue. Sorry, go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, and to that point, again, I'd like to extend my thank you as well, and I might even be so bold as to say on behalf of Bert to thank you, because I think for the first time, Bert's got somebody that he can consult with that has done these things before. You know, he's been a one-man show since we got on.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we would push him on ideas that we thought had merit, but he had 10 things to do. And I think with your experience, Matthew, you know, it will make this process easier for you, Bert.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely. And no, I look forward to a robust business directory at some point.
So, Madam Chair, the good news I have to report is recent rounds of advertising promoting our local vendor program. We did get 3 new inquiries, which we're following up on. So we'll see where that goes. But yeah,
So-
that's again on the volunteer side.
While the conversation is there, one of the things is that will come up, and it's just like not to make any decision or anything like that. It's just in the brainstorming discussion. So currently, if you run a business in the county, you're expected to buy a business permit.
In
If-
Woodlands
No.
County?
So correction, so you need a development permit
A de-
when you first start.
Thank you, sorry, a development permit, not a business permit, yes, a development permit. And so, and we kind of advertise no business licenses and so on, but the issue with that is especially post-COVID, you have so many people working from home, more than ever. And why would somebody want to get a development permit for their working at home business that they may never see a client, that they're gonna run the risk of increasing their taxes? And that's one of the that's some of the feedback that we get for businesses that don't want to identify in the county. And I feel that the discussion for a business license could be a workaround for that, because from a tax perspective, I don't think we need to be taxing, you know, whether you're at home working from home as an employee or whether you're at home working from home as your own business. I don't see a big issue with that, but anyway, it's just the conversation. Sorry, Mr. Ferris, I was saying it first.
Sorry, just on that, 2 things. The county is currently reviewing its land use bylaw.
Mhm.
If this committee is under the impression that we have unjust regulations for a person on their couch on a laptop, there should be a recommendation coming from this group
going to council saying, we would like this incorporated into your bylaw, or to consider it. Council doesn't have to take your recommendation, but you're here to provide that advice. It's great I'm hearing it, it's great Councillor Dean is hearing it, and I think Councillor, or Deputy Reeve Williams is online, I think.
Yeah.
So it's great they're hearing it, but as the local business owners, as those people that are providing that advice, giving that motion to say, hey, this should be looked at. And I agree wholeheartedly. You could design your land use bylaw so that that person on that couch just needs a business license. You can also, no different than in like a plaza with a Subway and a liquor store and that sort of thing. 9 times out of 10, those people aren't getting development permits if a new business is going in there. The permit was for the plaza, and they're just getting a business license.
Right.
9 times out of 10. So it's just making sure your business license and your land use bylaw align. The land use bylaw is being rewritten as we speak. So if there is a desire to do a business license, now is the time to do it. If there's concerns from a paperwork point of view like that, get them in now so that there's less of an issue if you give a recommendation for a business license, and at which point, if council adopts that mentality or not, so.
Go ahead, Councillor Dean.
So my thoughts are that there's obviously a difference between a business license and being part of a business directory. And I really think what the push from this committee has been is to get a directory so that we can help them market things. So I'm not going to speak for council as to whether there's an appetite to incorporate a license into the land use bylaw. Maybe there is, but what I've heard at this committee for over a year now is, wouldn't it be nice to be able to pull up online and have a list of all our county businesses, and then you can have target marketing and et cetera. So and we've been on this subject for quite a while, and I don't know where we're at. We started with the possibility of having a video made, and now we're on to business licenses. So
Still business retention.
but the recommendation says to enhance our business retention with a focus on digital support. So where are we going with this?
So Madam Chair, if I may, so in a previous municipality I worked in, what we did was our business licenses were all due on a particular date. From that, we developed our annual business directory. Then that annual business directory was on our website. We also advertised it on behalf of all the businesses several times a year in various platforms. And so when we go back to the nature of the RFD, this would be exactly that. It would be a digital support that we can use to enhance and draw some attention to our business community with names, addresses, links, whatever information we would want to put on. But whether you have it as a business directory or as a licensed business directory, that's certainly a recommendation that this committee can make to council, and we can go from there as to what you would like to do.
But it's the how, Bert. That's the question, is that we've been struggling with for years. How do we make it happen? We can say that's what we want to do.
And so this has been the process we've been through. Is we're on this voluntary road, and we've done rounds of advertising, we've done rounds of outreach and phone calls and various things. And people just do not want to volunteer their information to be on a business directory. Mm-hmm. If you have a mandatory business licensing program, then every year you'll have their information, and you can say, hey, for your $100, you're going to get $300 worth of advertising, placement here, we can profile your business here, we can do all of these things. There's a whole package of value that we can build into helping to market them, as well as just ensuring their validity and that pride that you spoke to earlier of being, you are a verified Woodlands County business. So now everybody that's licensed can use this logo. Isn't that awesome?
So you're suggesting, or what I'm hearing you suggest, is that the committee should make a recommendation to council, and just let me finish my thought.
Yeah.
To incorporate a business license with the intent of creating a business directory that we could use digital supports to enhance the businesses. Is that where you're going?
Roughly, yes. And along with that comes exactly what CAO Ferris said, which is, it's something that the timing is right now, because you can incorporate it into that land use bylaw process as well.
That would,
So would that be for new businesses? Or would we be going knocking on doors on existing businesses? Oh, by the way,
If you say it's a mandatory program, then, you know, there's always an enforcement side that would have to be determined.
go ahead.
Just for clarity, when I've done it in the past, where we started a new business license program and there were existing permits, the council of that day chose that the existing permits got the first 2 or 3 years free as a transition. They still had to fill out their paperwork, but it said, look, we recognize this is new. When you started, this process was different. So the first couple of years, we're gonna waive the fee. And then after a certain point, they started paying, there was a nominal fee, it was like $25, not even as high as $100.
Sure.
And, because it wasn't about the money, and what the commitment of the council was the whatever revenue that it was, because it wasn't a revenue generator, wasn't the intent, was that total dollar would be put on additional advertising for local businesses, either select trade shows to, like at the RV show, they were doing one for the campground and RV storage community. So that year, that was the sole budget of the business licenses. The next year, they'd pick a different industry and they'd promote it in a different way. But yeah, they did a transition period for those other ones, just to ease it in and help get the goodwill. That was how I did it in the past.
Sure.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Dean.
So I'm just wondering if we should, maybe our motion should be to direct administration to come back to another meeting with a recommendation of how to make this work.
I think that's actually an excellent point, because then we can make sure to encompass the planning department recommendation portion of that as well. So if that makes sense.
So if people are comfortable with that, I'd move that the EDC requests that administration bring to a future EDC meeting a plan to incorporate a business licensing program into our as yet unadopted land use bylaw with a focus on digital supports. Does that make sense?
I think that sounds pretty fair.
And I'd be really looking forward to your comments and input into that as well, Mr. Paris, like when we go through and do that. And then I know I have some background information that I can add for that in research that I've done as to the benefits of municipalities for incorporating business licenses. So I can add some info for your package for that.
Okay.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Bert? Are you comfortable with that?
I think that makes perfect sense. I mean, you know, what's exciting about this discussion in the RFD is, we are, I think, right on track with the purpose of it, which is to identify some areas on, you know, how can we increase some digital support for businesses. And I think what's come out of it is the ability for us to leverage some partnerships, revise an existing program, and take a look at how we could implement business licensing on a, you know, I won't say revenue neutral, but on a very revenue friendly or cost friendly kind of basis, so that we can provide more marketing support. I think all three of those things are spectacular.
Exactly. And the approach will be to make it imperative that the residents understand exactly like you said, this is not a money grab. It's something that will provide the county benefit, provide the businesses benefit going forward, and exactly that. So we can look at a free phase-in or whatever the requirement may be. So awesome. Alrighty. So do we require a motion?
So with that, then
Need a motion.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah,
Yes.
I'll pull my comments back. That's just what I was going to ask about, Madam Chair, was the motions.
Okay, my apologies. Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? Nope. All in favor? Perfect. Thank you much.
In favor.
So then,
Thanks.
Madam Chair, just to clarify, so we have the two motions then, the one regarding the high schools and others for the videos. The second motion now, is there, or would the committee like, or do you feel we need to make a minor change to that TOR to take out that word pilot? And especially I'm thinking on line 3.1, change it to just this initiative.
Okay, so let me back up. We actually did not vote on the motion for the high school, is that correct?
No.
So that was what we had discussed, was what would that motion look like? That wasn't an actual motion, is that correct? Okay, so the only motion that we had is just the one that you've just made? Okay, so then the answer to the second part of your question is, do we make a motion to remove pilot from the program? Okay, and what are your thoughts?
Or are there any other recommendations to the TOR, I guess would be the other part of it. And this is a TOR that our committee did pass and invoke ourselves, so I think we should be in CEO affairs, if I'm correct.
I
We
would
put
say
it together, so-
administratively, you don't need to ask their permission. I
Oh,
would
okay.
just do it.
We just
but
do it?
If
Okay.
you want to, for good measure, absolutely,
If-
yeah.
Perfect, I'm good with
Whatever the
that.
committee would like to do that.
I actually make a motion that we convert the local vendor pilot program into a local vendor program and remove the word pilot, as I think it's been successful and we should keep going with it.
Okay, excellent. Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Thanks, Doug.
Coming back to the.
That was easy peasy.
Do we want something recorded? Are we recommending yet, or should we wait until this person is in place and
I think we
examine
should
this?
wait until the person's in place. I think that part of that would be something good to integrate into the discussion around maybe if council decides that they're interested in going forward with a business licensing program, then maybe that's something that we could integrate as well, you know, looking at it from that perspective and have an integrated plan.
And I just want to remind you that I have 15 minutes before I have to leave. So
Yes, and actually that's kind of jumping back in here, so I think we have, okay, so basically under work plan updates, now, the work plan updates were pretty well all included in the package here, Bert, everything except for mine, I think, right?
Yes, and I do apologize for that I missed printing and including that email. We can certainly circulate it and provide it to everyone, and thank you all very much for providing online and to our attendees and to our committee the comments and the observations you had from attending each of those conferences, from the Growing the North and from the SMR conference. I think that was great. And yeah, if there's any other discussion or any other commentary, I mean, it was exciting to see the level of participation from the committee and from our elected officials that we've had with our delegations.
I was just gonna say, are you guys circling back to 6.1? I don't think that you guys accepted or you're going to accept that. That was definitely one of the week's recommendations to administration on opportunities to enhance the business retention and expansion activities with a focus on digital supports.
we changed, we made a different motion.
Okay,
Yes.
so are you just going to replace that other motion that Bert had recommended? Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure.
Okay, thank you for that, though.
Thanks, Patricia. But it has been wonderful to see the council, committee, and CAO participation at our conferences. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sean.
I'll make a motion
Okay,
that the committee accepts the work plan updates as presented.
Okay, any further questions on the motion? All in favor?
In favor.
Thank you. Alrighty, let's moving right on to our information items.
So I wanted to include the links to all of the stories I've seen on tariffs in the last 4 weeks, but we did not have enough room.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. That, of course, is the fast-moving elephant, right? Stay tuned, and we'll wait and see what happens. I mean, it really is kind of impossible. You'll see there are some tariff resources there that have been put together as part of our Jobs, Economy, and Trade North Central Regional Connector, and we can certainly put those resources up on our website if it's beneficial for residents and all of that to kind of maybe see those and have those on a broader basis. Yeah, I mean, we've all seen the news, we've all seen the headlines. It changes on an hourly basis, and I haven't even looked at anything today. So, I mean, who knows?
Was there any specific trends in the reports that you thought would
I
be
think
of interest to the committee?
probably for me, the biggest, the macro items to pull are, you know, tariffs, no tariffs. We're seeing interest rates go down. Generally, it seems like we have a fair amount of economic stability. I think what's most exciting is the discussion now that's being held around the reduction of some of the internal trade barriers and some of the things between provinces, and possibly the ability for us to have better access to tidewater ports and those things, whether it's for oil and gas or for any other items. Those are all things that, you know, they're all longer term, but I think they're all really, really exciting. And what is the other piece of information that I've gleaned is, in spite of all of the news cycle, circus and everything that's happening, it does seem that a lot of companies are still very much looking at Canadian projects, and you know, they see the value and the possibilities of expanding and of being here. So yeah, it'll be interesting. More to come on all of that, but that covers the basics that we usually cover.
Okay, Councillor Dean?
Just move that Woodlands County EDC receives the reports presented as info.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
In favor.
Thank you, Devin.
When we go into camera,
Yes.
I'll wait until we're in camera before asking a question.
Okay, perfect. So now we would need a motion to move into the closed session.
I'll make a motion that we move into the closed session.
Okay, and actually, sorry, point of order, Bert. Because we're gonna be going offline,
Yes.
then do we make a motion now to pass the motions when we come out of?
No, what we usually do is in the meeting minutes for the next meeting, usually if there was any motions or anything that came out of the in-committee discussion that would be separate from just approving those items as information, it would be in that next meeting package.
Okay, excellent. So the only thing that we'll have after we come out of camera is just a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, just the motion to move in, the motion to move out, motion to accept as info items, and then motion to adjourn, which I believe would be Mr. Potts.
Okay, excellent. All right, then I'd be looking for a motion to move into committee.
Go
Yeah,
ahead,
that's
Sean.
what I made a motion to move into committee.
Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor?
In favor.
Thanks, Devin. Okay, and if you can let us know, Jen, when we're